Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well today. This time we are going to be talking about XCOM, Terror from the Deep. So how did we get here? At the end of the first game, you go to Mars, you destroy the alien base, and everything's okay. Unfortunately, the aliens send a message back to Earth where a group of aliens has been hibernating ever since they crash landed on Earth 65 million years ago. I can't remember exactly what they are, or at least can't remember the name. But they're an ancestor or a cousin of the sectoids from the first game. And they have basically just been living on Earth. This game takes place almost entirely underwater, which is kind of fun. And it shifts from being an alien game where you're fighting off aliens to something closer to like a Lovecraftian story, where you have a bunch of creatures that are millions of years old, if not older than that, and they all have just evolved or been surgically altered to live under the water. Many of the creatures even reflect that Cthulhu mythos. Wow. They'll have names like the Deep Ones and things like that. They will look almost like they're humans, but with different fish parts grafted onto them. It's kind of strange to go through and play this from... If you played this one first, it's a little different from the first game in some ways. It's not totally different, and there's kind of an interesting story for the history of this that I'll get into later. So first of all, the story behind this whole thing. Julian Gollop wanted to basically make XCOM Apocalypse be the second game, but Microprose, the publisher, wanted to capitalize on the success of the first game. So instead of having Julian Gollop's team work on Terror from the Deep, it was given over to a different in-house company to work on. They only had, I believe, 9 months or less than that to put out a sequel. So what they did was take the existing game, reskin it, change it from fighting on land to fighting on underwater, but you can also fight on land as well, and you have Terror from the Deep. It's not too different from the first game, which is nice because it came out very quickly after the first game was released, but it did change enough to make it feel a little bit different. It's still the first game, at least in my opinion, but with some kind of interesting twist to it. They took away some stuff that I really enjoyed about the first game and replaced it with stuff that is cool, but really makes me wish the other stuff was left in. As I mentioned, you're fighting underwater now, and all of the technology that was researched and gained from the first game is completely lost for some godforsaken reason. Which means you don't have any more laser weapons, you don't have any of the ships that you had in the first game, all of those soldiers that would have been pretty useful, they're gone. It also helps that this is 51 years into the future, depending on how long it took you to beat the first game. So XCOM was disbanded immediately after defeating the aliens, which is just brilliant, and just absolutely brilliant. So you need to basically figure out everything all over again. The biggest thing that they took away from this that made me a little upset when I first played this 20 some odd years ago was the laser weapons are gone, and they were replaced with Gauss weapons. They kind of feel the same, but the laser weapons gave you unlimited ammo, which was awesome. The Gauss weapons, on the other hand, they're fine. They don't feel as... Well, I shouldn't say they don't feel as good. They're just not as effective as the laser weapons were. at least in my opinion. This game is also much harder than the first one. The aliens seem a lot tougher than they were in the first game. You seemingly have less of an advantage, less of an advantage whenever you go out to fight. So you really want to fight in the daytime, because at night you just get massacred. There are fewer places where you land and you have some cover. A lot of times you're out in the open and the aliens seem to be just completely locked onto you. So it's not unheard of to lose 4 or 5 people on a mission. It gets really frustrating at times, but you can eventually figure out exactly what's going on. And like other XCOM games, you just kind of have to deal with the fact that you're going to lose a bunch of players or a bunch of characters during all of this. Yeah, the graphics are largely the same as the first game, which makes sense because it was released fairly early on. There isn't a whole lot of difference between the different characters and everything. The graphics did get changed around quite nicely. I do like the locations that they use. They're pretty awesome. The characters still look fine for what this game is and what it's trying to do. The aliens are still pretty creative. In fact, they made some improvements on them that I wish had been used in the first game in some cases. I like the fact that you actually go underwater, so if you shoot down a UFO over water, that's the whole point. Instead of in the first game where if it's shot down over water, it's gone forever. Here, the whole idea is to go underwater and find them. And the environments look pretty cool when you go down there, especially, when you get down there and you find something weird. It's kind of fun, you find trash or something down there, or you find a bunch of stanchions for an oil rig or something that you wouldn't necessarily expect to be where it is. Some of the terror attacks are kind of fun, especially since they don't always happen on in a town. Sometimes they happen on an actual freighter ship, and that's kind of different. It's pretty interesting to see that sort of stuff. Overall, I do like the graphics in this game, but I like the graphics in the first game too. So yeah, there's not a whole lot to dislike about them. If you're into PC games from this time period, you're going to still like this sort of thing. It's a pretty interesting game to look at in some cases. I do feel like the visibility got cut down during night missions. The aliens were always able to see perfectly at night, and you always had the disadvantage at night. But here it seems like it kind of got magnified quite a bit. I don't know if that's true or not, but it feels a lot worse when you're fighting night missions in Terror from the Deep as opposed to UFO Defense. Terror from the Deep is one of the games that I played off of demo discs. A friend of mine, after we had played the first game, he had found some demo disc with the second game on it, or the first mission in the second game. And I remember that mission just really setting you up for failure, just in a spectacular way. They gave you crap that I never would have bought in this game, just absolute garbage. They give you one of the tanks to use, and I never mentioned that in the other game, but you can buy different tanks, and once you get some alien technology, you can build different actual tanks that take up more space than your soldiers, and they basically just waste a lot of crap. They are awful. At least I think they're awful because they take up a lot of room. They have more firepower. But one shot can take them down, just like with your soldiers as well. So it's just wow, why the hell did you even put this in the game, and why did you think I wanted to use it for the demo? I could go on and on about that. But a friend of mine had got the demo disc, which was just a wonderful memory of getting demo discs. And we played through like that first mission, or that one random mission, so many times, like just trying to do better each time, because the game felt so much harder than the first game. And it was kind of a cool experience to sit there and play that. Oh gosh. I remember I had like a pack of these, so I think it was in like 2000 or so. It was after XCOM Apocalypse had been released. And I saw in a store, probably Best Buy, but they had a pack of all the XCOM games. So, Terror from the Deep, UFO Defense, Apocalypse, and I think Enforcer was in there, but I'm not totally sure about that. But I remember playing through it again, and when we got to the end, basically the end of Terror from the Deep set up the story for Apocalypse. And it gave you a reason for what was going on in Apocalypse. Like there's that whole, you destroy the enemy spaceship, the one that had been crash landed on Earth and somehow created a whole civilization. You blow that up and it causes an ecological disaster, which kind of sets up the story for Apocalypse. So that was kind of fun, even if Apocalypse sucked. So this was not a game that I really enjoyed when I was younger. I just kept on thinking, when I did play it, I kept thinking, I'd rather be playing UFO Defense while I'm doing this. And I didn't really get it when I was a kid. And yeah, I played it, I was like, great, it's the first game all over again, but now they're underwater, great, wonderful. And then going back and playing it over the years and kind of revisiting the thing, digging more into it, and finding out all of the different stuff about this game and the other games as well, I've kind of grown to appreciate this one quite a bit. Even though it is just a reskin, and it's harder than the first game, it's still kind of fun to sit there and go through, even if it can be incredibly frustrating at times, and it makes you just really get upset every once in a while. It still gives you that sense that you're forming some kind of an emotional connection with your team and everything. You want your soldiers to stay alive, you want them to gain rank and that sort of thing. And yeah, you kind of want to kill the aliens and kick them off Earth. It's always a fun goal in many video games to do that. And yeah, going back and playing Terror from the Deep, it was kind of fun, and I'm glad I went back again and gave it another look to kind of reinforce my changing opinion over the years. So anyway, that's going to wrap things up. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.